Every system has a story, and every story teaches us something about design, decisions, and discovery. You are listening to Systems and Stories, where code meets clarity and architecture meets experience. Hosted by me, Sanal, together we will explore lessons behind the systems we build and the stories that shape us. Episode 1. Welcome to System and Stories. I am Sanal, architect, developer, and storyteller behind Omega Codex. This marks the start of a new journey from the world of Omega Codex, my YouTube channel, a place where I share my learnings and experiences. And this is the very first episode of Systems and Stories. I hope to make it a place where we talk about systems and the stories associated with them. To begin this journey, I wanted to start with something that truly resonates with me, a theme that often comes up when I talk to developers both personally and professionally. Why every developer should think like an architect. Have you ever looked at your code and thought, why doesn't this piece fit well into the bigger puzzle? It's an unconventional question, right? But if you ever felt that way, this episode is for you. The word architect sounds fancy, like someone in a corner office sketching diagrams while everyone else writes the real code. But is it really all there is to it? To me, thinking like an architect means seeing the code as part of a living system. Every function you write affects something beyond itself: performance, security, user experience, maybe even cost. Architecture thinking is about connecting those dots. Imagine you're building a house. You could obsess over perfecting one wall, but if you ignore the wiring or plumbing, well, that wall won't mean much. Code is the same. Elegant snippets don't matter if the system around them is fragile. When you start asking questions like, who depends on this? Or what happens if this fails at 2 am? Congratulations, you're already thinking like an architect. Say, for example, you spend weeks perfecting a piece of system, tuning it, benchmarking it, maybe even dreaming about those optimizations. Then one day, during an actual run, everything slows to a crawl. And it turns out the real bottleneck was a database schema you never questioned. Jumping into solutions before understanding the system can be dangerous. I still remember this from my early days as a developer. I was once asked to implement a delete operation across a large application. The app had a complex hierarchy of relationships, and because of that, the delete feature had been postponed for many years. It was considered a big task, estimated to take several days. My mind was already racing with excitement, trying to design the perfect solution. I jumped straight into the code, and to everyone's surprise, I finished the task in 2 days. I was thrilled until my lead started testing it. That's when the funniest thing happened. The app started crashing with every other operation after deleting an object. We had a good laugh, but it taught me a humbling lesson. You can't optimize one corner of the system without fully understanding it. Architecture thinking forces you to zoom out, to balance your depth in code with breadth in vision. It's about asking why before you dive into how. And after working with so many teams over years, I have noticed few patterns that often hold developers back from growing into an architecture's mindset. The first one is falling in love with over-engineering. We get excited about design patterns and abstractions, and that's great. But sometimes we end up solving problems that even doesn't exist. The real architectural thinking starts with a restraint, building what's truly needed, not what looks elegant on paper. The second is ignoring those invisible things. Latency, observability, security, cost. They don't show up on your IDE, but they define whether your system actually works in the real world. An architecture's eye naturally looks for those invisible things in the code. And finally, architecture is a team sport. The moment you start asking, how does this work fits into others? That's when the real system thinking begins. These aren't hard rules, these are small mindset shifts that help you zoom out, connect dots, and make better decisions. When you start to see how your work impacts the whole system, something changes. You begin to view systems not as stacks of code, but as living stories made up of choices, trade offs, and people. And honestly, that curiosity, that urge to see the bigger story is how Omega Codex began. I wanted to explore the why behind the technology, not just the how. To share the lessons, the failures, and the quiet insights that makes us better engineers. Systems and stories is a continuation of that idea, connecting the logic of software with the human side of building it. Because end of the day, architecture isn't about boxes and arrows. It's about people designing systems that other people can trust. So next time, when you sit down to code, take a step back. Ask yourself, how does this piece fit into the whole? That's the moment when you start thinking like an architect. If this episode gave you something to think about, follow Systems and Stories wherever you're listening. And if you want to go deeper, check out Omega Codex on YouTube. I talk about .NET, Azure, DevOps, and all messy, magical parts of building great systems. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep thinking like an architect.